Hello, my name is Kerry Stairs and I'm a partner at Charles Russell Speechleys, specialising in environmental, social and governance, or ESG. Today, as part of our new series on supply chains, I'm going to explore a topic that's gaining significant traction with private markets investors: the growing focus on human rights and the social sustainability of investments. We all know that businesses can cause serious harms to people. Forced labour is often the example that comes to mind, but business operations and supply chains can adversely affect human rights in a whole range of ways, by failing to ensure safe working conditions, for example, restricting the formation of trade unions, discriminating against workers, infringing on privacy rights, or polluting the environment. The impacts of business on people are no longer just a matter for governments or NGOs. Private markets investors are increasingly recognising that risks to people create real financial risks for their portfolio companies, and they're acting accordingly. For over a decade, responsible businesses have been working to manage human rights risks across their operations and supply chains, and the benchmark for best practice remains the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights 2011, known as the UNGPs. These call on companies to identify, assess and address their impacts on people by doing risk-based human rights due diligence. These principles are becoming hard law. In the EU, for example, the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, or CSDDD, now mandates human rights due diligence for large companies. Other countries, including France, Germany and Norway, have introduced similar domestic legislation. And the EU's new forced labour regulation will soon prohibit the import, export and sale of any products linked to forced labour, making robust due diligence not just advisable, but an essential part of risk management. But regulation is only part of the story. Investors themselves are becoming powerful drivers of change. Why? Well, in part because they're being asked to disclose more about their human rights risks in their portfolios. Under the EU's Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, for example, large institutional investors must assess and report on human rights-related risks, opportunities and impacts across their portfolios, not just those risks that are financially material, but those impacts that are significant in terms of severity and likelihood. The EU taxonomy regulation also requires investors to demonstrate that their investments meet minimum social safeguards, which includes alignment with international human rights standards. In practice, this means investors must evaluate whether companies have effective human rights due diligence processes in place. There's also a growing recognition from private markets investors that human rights risks can have a direct impact on financial performance. Consider litigation risk, for example. UK-based companies with international operations or international suppliers are increasingly vulnerable to claims in the English court, where harms to people happen in their overseas operations or overseas supply chains. Reputational risk is another major concern. As consumers become more socially conscious, companies that fail to address human rights issues face public backlash, loss of brand trust, and declining sales. Operational risks are also potentially significant. Labour-related disruptions, whether through strikes, supply chain breakdowns, or regulatory action, can severely impact business continuity. And commercially, companies that cannot meet human rights expectations may find themselves excluded from supply chains or losing out on lucrative contracts. Importantly, addressing human rights isn't just about risk mitigation. Investors also see it as a strategy for value creation. Companies that invest in robust human rights policies tend to have more resilient supply chains, stronger relationships with suppliers, and greater agility in times of crisis. They also benefit from enhanced brand reputation and customer loyalty. Recent surveys show that consumers increasingly prefer to buy from companies with ethical sourcing strategies. Moreover, businesses that prioritise human rights are often better positioned to attract and retain talent, particularly among the next generation, who value purpose and social impact alongside financial reward. So what does all this mean in practice? On the investor side, we are seeing private markets investors increasingly integrating human rights considerations throughout the investment lifecycle. This starts with establishing clear governance structures, including defined roles, policies and systems to monitor human rights performance. During the screening phase, investors are assessing potential investments for human rights risks. If an investment proceeds, then more detailed due diligence then follows, including supply chain mapping and evaluation of the company's ability to manage human rights risks effectively. Investment decisions are starting to reflect the outcomes of this due diligence, with expectations formalised in action plans and agreements. And after investment, we are increasingly seeing investors supporting portfolio companies to strengthen their human rights risk management and to monitor progress. Companies that want to position themselves to attract investment should get some help to develop a risk-based due diligence process that is appropriate to their business context. This includes developing a human rights policy, mapping key supply chains, assessing salient human rights risks, and prioritising action and resources to prevent, mitigate, and remedy those risks accordingly. Perfection is not the goal here. What the regulations call for, and your investors, corporate customers, and other key stakeholders expect, is credible and consistent progress. Thank you for watching. For help understanding human rights risks and how they relate to your business or investments, please get in touch with me or your usual Charles Russell Speechlys contact. And do look out for other episodes in this series on supply chains.